You're listening to the True North Success Podcast. Real stories of personal, professional, and financial wins from Alberta's best. With your hosts, Gary Ma and Amy Kim.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Today my special guest is Dr. Paul Fedak. He is a leading edge cardiac surgeon in Calgary, Alberta, and he focuses on developing and advancing new surgical therapies for patients with advanced heart disease. Dr. Fedak is also a consultant, translational scientist, thought leader, consultant, and writer. It is my pleasure to have Dr. Paul Fedak on the show today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, so Dr. Fedak, I gave a quick overview of your success, but can you fill in the details of what you do, who you serve, and how long you've been doing this for?
Absolutely. So I'm what's called a surgical scientist. So I'm a PhD trained, what we call translational scientist. So I run a very busy research program where we train PhD students and we're trying to find new ways to do heart surgery and repair the heart. So that is in part a full-time job. And then I'm also a clinical heart surgeon. So I perform surgery, and that's been most of my career for about 20 years, doing both of those things. And then I started to get into leadership about 7 years ago. Like many people, once they've sort of mastered their craft and they get on in their career, leadership opportunities start to open up. And I got into leadership, and you had mentioned consulting work. So I do really like to use my clinical skills and my scientific research skills and my leadership skills to help companies, everything from an early stage startup company all the way to some of the biggest medical device companies in the world, and help them integrate their business and their research strategies to innovate and optimize the sort of success or impact of their devices or products. So it's just another piece. I see all these things as being related, and many people will say to me, well, what do you like better? Do you like research better? Or do you like practicing surgery better? And I say, well, what do you like better, your left arm or your right arm? To me, they're parts of a whole. They're integrated parts. So they're just parts of me that, you know, I'm always looking to provide impact in the things that I do, and I'll integrate those skills.
Right. How did you get into becoming a cardiac surgeon? What led you to that field?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, when I was in high school, like many of us, we have to start thinking early about what it is that we want to do. And I thought, well, I do like science, and I thought, medicine might be a great career for lots of reasons. Like one, because it's impactful, right? It's life and death, and it's also in service of others. So I thought that would be really fantastic. And it's also a chance to really be part of the human experience, right? So there's a part of me that's a bit of the artistic side or the contemplative side or the even more spiritual side of me, really embraced that part of wanting to become a doctor. So I could be intimately part of people's lives in that profound way. And I think that's what really drove me to want to go into medicine. And then once I started in medical school, I trained in Toronto, and I got placed at the Toronto General Hospital, where they have one of the best cardiac surgery programs in the world. And so I got exposed to cardiologists and cardiac surgeons who were the best at what they do at a very formative early stage of my career. And I think this is what happens to many people who go on to be successful. If you look back at why they chose what they chose, they were influenced by people that they met along the way. So I think, an important message for younger people is that be open to the people you meet along the way. Ask questions, listen to podcasts, be curious about how people landed in what they did, because a lot of times it's shaped by individuals you meet.
Right. So it's really a journey that you've taken. And through that journey, you've met certain people that kind of help you along the way.
Yeah, not only do they help you, but they inspire you.
Yeah.
Right? You meet somebody, you're like, wow, this person has all these qualities that I wish I had. And I love the way they're living their life. I love the way they're showing up in the world. And I want to be like that. And I think that's what inspires you. And then you maybe take the same journey that they did.
Right, right. Tell me a little bit more about your role as a translational scientist and also as a writer.
Sure. So, translational science, many people aren't familiar with the term. I think everyone knows what a scientist is.
Yeah.
Translational work is where we call it bench to bedside. So it's going into your laboratory, doing the scientific work, like studying the cells and the molecules of the human body, but always intentionally thinking about how will that knowledge actually create better health for somebody in the clinical world. So as a surgical scientist, really what I'm trying to do is study things in my research and in my laboratory that I can then apply in the operating room to optimize surgical outcomes or to make surgery less painful or to let people recover faster or to heal more effectively so that we protect their hearts after injury. So really that's what you're translating. It's very applied. It's very
Hmm.
focused. That's what translational science is. And there's a whole art and theories and a foundation behind it. So that's always been really exciting to me because that's how you make a big impact, right? And that's how you
Right.
change the game. That's how you innovate and make things better. So that's the translational science piece. The writing is something that's a little bit more recent. So
Hmm.
I dabbled a tiny bit. Somebody reminded me that I'd written something and had it published, like a little short story, when I was in medical school. And then after, I got into training in cardiac surgery, it was so overwhelming. I don't think I ever wrote anything other than scientific papers
Right.
until recently.
Okay.
And it was only because I had to stop operating due to a disabling neck injury that gave me the sort of time, like everything slowed down. And I was in this more contemplative, reflective stage of my career, thinking back on the grief and loss of not being able to do this thing that I love to do so much. And that sort of inspired me, I think, to start writing.
Wow. So in some ways you've kind of had to dig pretty deep or reflect type of thing, and it got you into a different headspace, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think, there's pros and cons to having something catastrophic happen to you. I mean, we all want to avoid pain and suffering, and we don't want to go through a difficult time. The reality about life is that it will happen to all of us, and it doesn't matter
Hmm.
how successful you are, how disciplined, how focused you are. That's the rhythm of life, is that things are, and everything has a season, everything has a cycle. And I think once we start accepting that, it makes life a lot easier. And for all of us in our careers, there comes a time when you will have to stop, right? We all have to retire at some point, and that can be very difficult for some people who really identify with the kind of work that they do, which was me. So I very
Right.
much identify with, you know, being a cardiac surgeon, practicing cardiac surgery. And we have this sort of thing in surgery, like if you're not actually doing it, it's hard to call yourself a surgeon, right? Because it's about, it's like if you're a pilot, but you don't fly anymore, are you really a pilot? Well, you were, but are you still
Right.
now? So
Yeah.
you go through this kind of struggle. But so that's the downside. But the upside is it does force you to really think about yourself and your career and what matters to you and the balance of your life. And what I talk about is the story you tell yourself about who you are, right? I mean,
Hmm.
that we all tell ourselves a story about
Yeah.
who we are professionally, personally, in our various relationships. And if you can really, spend the time thinking about that and being honest with yourself, I think that's how you grow as a person. And then you start integrating the parts of yourself and you can get beyond sort of what I call an expert mindset, which many of us in medicine have. It's this more judgmental, black and white thinking. Can be very
Right.
effective,
Yeah.
but maybe not the best for your balance in your life.
Right. 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 With that in mind, like being an expert in everything, what kind of sets you apart from the competition? Like what comes easy to you that others might find challenging?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think we all have some degree of innate skill sets,
Hmm.
but I think we tend to maybe overemphasize that. Like the reality is, and I've read so many books about different people. I'm fascinated by how people live their lives and why they're successful and to answer your question, what sets people apart. So I've analyzed a lot of other people and I've seen worked with a lot of successful people. I think honestly, like discipline, hard work, commitment, persistence, never giving up. These are the things that really, if you look behind people's success, it's like the
Mhm.
number one thing. And I tell my kids it all the time. I mean, some people are fortunate. They've been given a gift of a raw talent. That's great. But there are a lot of really talented people who are not successful. And I would say the one thing that binds all successful people together is that willingness to understand the sacrifices you need to make and the discipline. So being able to get yourself motivated, get up early, get after it, and think long term as well. Like I think we
Right.
set typically very short term goals,
Yeah.
but my goal I set was like a lifelong goal, right?
Okay.
And honestly, to some extent, I feel like I'm only realizing the potential of the hard work I've put in my entire adult life now, which might sound strange, but it does feel that
Yeah.
way.
So I mean, like some people look at success like your overnight success, but it's only taken 25 years to get there.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What kind of tips or suggestions would you give someone who wants to be more successful?
Yeah, great point. Well, let me make this point too, because it goes along with both your questions. I don't think success is the outcome. We think of
Yeah.
success as being an outcome, like, oh, I'm famous, I'm rich, I have the positional authority, I'm now the CEO or the president or the vice president, the thing that you've been aiming at. So I don't think the outcome is really what success is. I think
Mm,
success is the process. It's the
mm,
commitment and discipline of committing to a process of continual improvement, continual growth, and setting little goals along the way, achieving them, and then scaling those. I honestly believe it's a commitment to that process. And so, what people should be doing is thinking about their success as what is the process you're committing to? What are the values and virtues you want to live in your life? And really making sure that you're making those decisions and you're committing to those at all times. That's success. And because that's what you can control. There's so many factors that you cannot control. You cannot necessarily control that you'll become the CEO or the VP or you're going to sell, $10 million of homes every year. There's so many factors that go into it. You're part of that, but you can't control every one of those factors. But you can control how much am I going to apply myself? Am I going to continuously learn? Am I going to show up in the best way I can with every interaction I have? Am I going to elevate the people around me in terms of helping others get there too? So I think that's really the frame shift in your mind that you have to take. And don't be too hard on yourself because the thing you set your goal for, if you
mhm.
commit to the process, you may realize that by the time you get towards achieving that goal, that wasn't really the right goal for you anyways, right? And by committing to the process, it will uncover what really is the true goal or aim of your life.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, you're so right about people have different definitions of what success means. And I know in my personal journey, I've had coaches and things like that where they say, okay, success is getting better every day, doing something that helps you grow, type of thing. And I think that's similar along the lines to what you're saying.
I think that's what it's all about because really that's all you can do in your life. There's so many factors you can't control, and you will drive yourself crazy trying to be too descriptive about what success has to look like for you. And I think you have to ask yourself the question: if you say to yourself, "Well, success to me means a certain income level, or driving a certain car, or having a
Right.
certain position," I think most people who have achieved those things will tell you that once you get those, you'll feel quite empty. Like for one moment, you're going to feel really great, but
Yeah.
it's not sustainable. It's not enduring. It doesn't really nourish you in the way that you think it will. Whereas focusing on personal development, elevating people around you, living a virtuous life, these are things that you can celebrate and I think pay a lot of dividends at the end of the day. Now, that being said, doesn't mean you still can't be rich and you still can't be famous and you still can't do all these things, but it's not the main target, right? Those are those are consequences of committing to a path, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
So, it's really that journey to getting to wherever you want to go, taking
Yeah,
those
and
little
I
steps.
would I would take it another step further in saying that the journey never ends, right? Like
Yeah.
there's no destination, right? I mean, I think it's a fallacy to think that we think of our lives in this linear way of like I'm going to keep going, I'm going to get to here, and then I'm going to be
Right.
somebody different, right?
Yeah.
The climate of my life will be perfect, the weather will be perfect in my life at that point, right?
Hmm.
It just doesn't work that way. The reality is that you're always going to be working towards something. You should commit to always be developing yourself and others. And that I think will give you the peace of mind that you want, reduce the level of anxiety, and pay a lot of dividends to you as a person if you think of your life in those terms, as opposed to a destination you're trying to get to.
With that being said, what's one of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome in your career, and how were you able to turn that into a positive?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the biggest challenges I had was about 2.5 years ago when I started having this relentless chronic back pain, and I
Hmm.
couldn't figure out what was going on. And in our training as surgeons, we are quite stoic, and we ignore pain. We just keep pushing through. And you'll hear this by many people of like, you just push through it, or
Yeah.
I'm injured, just keep going. And it's this sort of stoic, heroic way of living a life, which can have, its moments where that's important to do. But there are times too when you've got to slow down and you need
Mm.
rest and recovery. And, I wasn't very good at that, to be honest. And
Mhm.
this pain got worse. And I eventually got to the point where my hand froze during a heart surgery. And I found out that I had degenerative cervical spine disease with a compressed nerve. I had to have a neurosurgeon go through my neck and put plates and screws and decompress it.
Wow.
And unfortunately, I expected that 6 weeks later after the surgery, I'd be back in surgery. And 6 weeks became 3 months, became 6 months, became a year, became 2 years. And it was clear that I had a permanent nerve injury and I will never be able to operate again. So that was a really difficult process for me to go through because I identified so closely with my work. And,
Right.
I had committed so much time and energy to become a cardiac surgeon, to learn the craft, to get good at it. I
Yeah.
loved doing it. And all of a sudden I couldn't do it. So I got very depressed. I went through a really tough time, but I've now come through all of that. And I feel like I've learned a lot of lessons. And I'm now
Mm.
speaking about burnout and depression. We've lost many people in medicine due to suicide because of the stress of the job, and we're not great at asking for help. We like to help others. We don't like to
Right.
receive help,
Yeah.
and that kind of stoicism can be really dangerous.
Wow. That's life changing. Like what you've gone through with the with your neck and having to stop surgery, and now you've kind of turned that into a positive where you can help other people through kind of what you've gone through.
That's what I'm trying to do, and so far it seems to be resonating. I'm doing it through writing, I'm doing it through
Right.
speaking. I call it, it's just, to me, it's an extension of leadership. It's thought leadership, right? And it's helping people maybe reframe the things that they're going through.
Yeah.
And hopefully, with by hearing other people's stories, one, you realize you're not the only one.
Yeah.
Like after this happened to me, I started openly speaking about it, which is unusual for a surgeon.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people reached out and told me their own personal stories. Like this
Okay.
kind of stuff, this is just part of life. I mean, we should be expecting that there's going to be twists and turns in our lives and in our careers. And we like to think it happens to other people. But of course, it happens to everybody at some point. So we need to prepare for that.
Right, right, right. So let's switch gears a little bit. Um, with healthcare professionals and doctors, they make very good incomes when they're actively working and completing surgeries and helping people. The challenge is that when they're not working, the income can definitely drop. And so when you're looking towards the future, and where they don't want to be working so hard, Some people invest in stocks, bonds, crypto, and have a financial planner. What are your thoughts about financial planning and looking at ways of creating income outside of your active work?
Yeah, I think it's important, and it's just the old diversification. If you're a
Hmm.
one-trick pony, be careful. And I think what we're seeing in medical practice nowadays is that you can become obsolete pretty quickly. We've got all kinds of competing technologies that come out now. AI is on the horizon, robotics. There's a lot of specialty creep, meaning that what a cardiac surgeon exclusively used to do, now an interventional cardiologist can do. So these are real challenges. So of course, things can happen to you physically, like burnout or physical injury, like in my case. But there could be things within your rapidly changing field that could make what you do quite obsolete. So I think you have to be very careful if you're in a position where you're highly, highly specialized and you're paid a lot of money to do that highly specialized thing. Those are the people who definitely should be thinking about diversification. And that might be retraining, learning new skills, making sure you have a really good network of other people, because everything is really people based. If something
Hmm.
happens with your job, most likely you're going to find a new career or a new job or a new outlet through a friend or somebody in your peer network, right? So be
Yeah.
really help other people, because when your time of need comes, you're going to need their help. And I think it's just really important that anybody with a high income has to realize that we're all vulnerable, and make sure you have good disability insurance, and make sure
Hmm.
you're saving a certain portion of your income every year. I
Right.
think the difficulty with high income people is they feel like, well, it's never going to stop, right? So
Yeah.
they can catch up very quickly because their monthly revenue is quite high. So they can absorb, shocks. But if that money stops, you can be in big trouble if you don't have reserve, obviously, right? So I think high income people should be saving a portion of their money and saving it in a conservative way. Like, I don't
Hmm.
think they need to be trying to get massive returns. If you commit to saving a certain amount, let's say it's 15%, 20%, something like that,
Yeah.
every year for your career, you don't need to get massive returns. So you don't need to take the risk of a massive return. And I
Right.
think that's something that high income earners tend to be maybe a bit more speculative with their investments than they should be. And most doctors don't have any pensions. And then, of course, the one that everybody knows is that doctors, because they're highly expert at one thing, there's the creep into thinking you're an expert at everything, right?
Oh,
And of course, many doctors will sometimes invest in things that are highly speculative, and they lose a lot of money. We've all
okay.
seen that play out. So I think doctors in particular should stay in their lane, save a little bit of
Right.
money every year, put it in
Yeah.
equities, have someone manage it for you so that you don't mess around with it too much. Hire a professional,
Yeah.
because, like, people hire me as a professional because I'm an expert in what I do.
Yeah.
Similarly, I hire other people to do those parts of my life.
Well, I mean, that's a really interesting insight, because where they're specialists, they want to also get into that specialized game.
It's well, and I mean, some people can do it. There are examples of, I know some physicians who have been investing in all kinds of higher risk things and have been very successful. Like, it's
Right.
not,
Yeah.
doesn't mean it can't happen, but I think the average person, average doctor or high income professional,
Yeah.
usually if you're in a high income professional, you're very busy doing that high income professional job. You don't have
Yeah.
a lot of time to be doing other things, right?
Right.
So it's better probably to have somebody support you doing those.
As we're wrapping up our interview, what kind of exciting plans do you have in the works in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm currently on a sabbatical, and I'm exploring all kinds of things. A lot to do with the advocacy for culture change in medicine, so that we try to prevent the burnout, the mental distress, depression, suicide, many things that we're seeing in healthcare today, and retain our high quality workers. So I'm doing a lot of speaking engagements. I'm doing a lot of writing. I'm working with some external groups, to try to advocate for changes in healthcare. So a lot of things like that. I'm still doing my research. I'm doing consulting work, helping surgical programs in other provinces, coaching people, doing probably too many things. Like that tends to be something that I just like doing stuff. So I'm probably doing too much. You can ask my wife; she'd probably agree. But I'm also trying to balance it with going to the gym every day, staying fit, spending time with family, all those other good things too. So looking really at this stage of my life is trying to balance. I think I wasn't the most balanced person, which
Right.
it's hard to be if you're a surgical scientist. It's all consuming. But now I've got a chance to maybe do it differently. And but I'm still really excited about meeting new people, exploring, different opportunities, and continuing to learn. I mean, I think that's the part that for me is really important. Just continue to grow and learn and use my skills in the best way that I can.
Nice, nice, nice. Dr. Fedak, that wraps it up today. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights and tips with us. It was a real pleasure to have you on the show. Dr. Fedak, if people want to connect with you, what should they do?
Feel free to email me, just paul.fedak, Fedak, at gmail.com.
Right on. You're also on LinkedIn as well?
Yep, LinkedIn. Yep.
Okay. Right
Yep. Feel
on.
free to ping me on LinkedIn. It's just if you can find me, do a Google search, you'll find a way to find me. My
Right on.
website, yeah, paulfedak.com.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Gary.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
Want to share your success story? Apply to be a guest at truenorthsuccessshow.com/guest. We'd love to hear from you.